You are watching
Trinity Episcopal School Production Network. TESPN.
All right, welcome to this week's TESPN podcast, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Not a lot of action this week in Titan Athletics. The ninth graders are all gone on their freshman retreat, so most of the teams aren't having contests this week. So we thought it might be a fun time to look back with Carter Tyree and I, who've been the sponsors of TESPN, and have our students here, Bella Jenkins and Deuce Edwards, ask us some questions. Kind of flip the script a little bit and have us in front of the camera talking about the history of TESPN. So don't really know what y'all are going to ask us yet, but we're excited to do this. Yeah, let's go.
I think our first question is, what's the start of TESPN? I think we have a little bit of a backstory, but I came into it late. I think Deuce was kind of here, but not as involved. So how did this all come about?
Yeah, so Anna Perlman, the former athletic director, it was an idea that she had, I think, for years, but we needed to have the equipment, the technical know-how. I think that she went to some other schools that already were doing some streaming things. I think St. Christopher's, Woodbury Forest were a couple that I remember that were really helpful. And then we really needed students who were excited about it. So Lily Jeanette, class of 23, was the president for the first 2 years of TESPN. And then I was looking to kind of transition out of coaching varsity basketball. Of course, still coaching soccer, but also wanted to find a way, that I could help with my passion for Trinity athletics. And so Ms. Perlman and I talked about, I was interested in the broadcasting part. A lot of schools are offering live streams of games, and we were, maybe not behind the times, but certainly compared to some of the league rivals, it was time for us to really step that up. And then, I'll let Coach Tyree talk about, but when he came in the second year, really as a full-time person with this, it took it to another level because he had the technical know-how that I certainly didn't, and I don't think Mr. Perlman did either, or really any of the students at that point. But yeah, those early students, that first year, getting it across the line, Jeffrey Bell's another one. He produced so many of our live events, and that was really led to some iconic moments. But I think ultimately, Ms. Perlman and Lily Jeanette, are kind of on the Mount Rushmore of the launch of TESPN.
Yeah, and it kind of, when I came in, it was kind of more technology advanced, but less sports broadcasting advanced. So I came in, and I think they were on stage crew or worked with the theater department, and we had these very high-tech microphones and AV plugs, and we were going through about 3 different things just to connect to the computer. So my whole first year, I sat down and I was like, all right, make it simpler. I had to teach myself how to do all of the things so I could teach you guys how to do them. Anything we had to do with our broadcasts, I basically spent that whole first summer just practice broadcasting and making sure everything worked and making sure everything was easy. But now it's a lot simpler, and a lot of you guys now know how to set up by yourself, be able to run broadcasts by yourself, and teach each other, which is making it easier for us, so we have to do less, and we can watch you guys grow and become broadcasters and become TV people and producers. And
I think one thing this club has really led to, like even when I think about myself, or even kids that have left and graduated training, it's made them spark ideas about jobs in sports. So by you teaching that, some kids want to be professional broadcasters and go to college for that. So I think that's awesome.
For sure. Griffin Wright, who was a senior the first year we had this, has commentated, I think, dozens of college soccer games that have been on ESPN Plus down at High Point University. Ryan Lloyd, who was a big member of the club, especially the last 2 years, is now a freshman at Elon, and he's in their, I don't know exactly what they call it, but their broadcast school.
The broadcast program, yeah. And they had to submit a reel for that, and he had a TESPN reel of all the games and stuff he had worked on.
And then when you pair that with the sports broadcasting class that we started last year, that wasn't my idea. The school came to us and said, this thing is growing, let's have a little more formal training, and that's been really cool. We've had a lot of guest speakers. I have to give some shout outs, like Greg Olson, former professional football player who has broadcast the Super Bowl on Fox, zoomed in with our class. Randy Scott, who is the anchor of Sports Center every morning from 7 to 10, zoomed in with our class. Local sports and media personalities like Lane Casadante and Riley Wyatt, just to name a few, as well as some TES alums who are in broadcasting, like Preston Willett, who's in Charlottesville, and Billy Shields, who's with PBS locally. So having these guest speakers that literally their job and the way that they sustain their livelihood is in broadcasting has been awesome, and they've been so willing and wanting even to connect with us. Like when we Zoomed with Greg Olson, the Zoom ran out, and like the bell was about to ring and it was time to go. And Greg Olson, I mean, this guy makes millions and millions of dollars broadcasting, is calling my cell phone like, hey, I want to get back in the Zoom. What happened? You know, and he didn't have to do that. So having those help from professionals has really been huge as well. And then our students see that there is a pathway forward, especially now because everything is streaming. So even, you know, all the way from obviously the big dogs like the NFL on network television, all the way to colleges that like at the D3 level that stream all their sports.
Right.
There's a lot of need for folks in broadcasting, both with a microphone and then behind the scenes as well. So my goal with the sports broadcasting class, like I'm hoping that we become a go-to place for young people that want to do this as a career, which when I was y'all's age, like I would have potentially come to a school that offered this versus others that didn't.
Yeah, and look at TSPN as a whole, like even the non-broadcasting sides of things, like our social media, our photography, kids that maybe have a love for sports but aren't great public speakers, or maybe they just love photography and want some way to kind of show that, we're helping them out as well. Like we talked about Lily Jeanette earlier, her number one thing was her sports photography. And so she was able to run with that, and now she's doing it at Tennessee. And that's something that we got to watch her grow and develop here at TSPN.
I think there's a spot for everyone behind the scenes, in front of the camera.
Definitely. TSPN definitely like inspired me to, you know, be a sports broadcaster one day. You know, I started doing the girls lacrosse game like last year before last, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was messing up like all the lingo or whatever. But Mr. Hamlin told me, was it that game? Like you told me, like people were like they liked it or whatever, and people were texting me after the game, and it was like that was like the most funniest thing ever. And then after that, I was like, nah, I think I want to do this, and like
and you've done a bunch of basketball and
it's fun though.
A bunch
Like,
of different sports.
Just to be able like to talk about sports in general, like that's definitely fun. It's not far. Next question. You know, going in like into sports, what do y'all think is y'all's favorite moments like in like broadcasting?
I guess I'll go first. I mean, there've been so many. I never could have dreamed when we started this a few years ago, the iconic Trinity athletic moments that we've gotten to be a part of. Some that lead to mind, I mean, definitely the 2021 football state championship game, coming down to a 2-point conversion at the end against our biggest rival right here behind us on Aycock Stadium, and winning the Division I football championship for the first time with Jack Toscano to Trey Ferguson. That's a moment that we'll always remember, and is still kind of by far our most viewed video that we've ever done.
Legendary.
It was legendary. You were out there. You were even closer to the action as a player than we were up in the booth. The soccer game, at the boys' game at City Stadium in the state semifinal, beating Collegiate with a last-minute goal, the number 1 seeded Collegiate team, and also just everything that went into taking some broadcasts off campus, which we weren't sure we could do, or I certainly wasn't. And if it wasn't for Carter Tyree here, like that would have never been possible. So we got to be part of this iconic moment thanks to what Tyree does by setting it all up, which, by the way, City Stadium is like over 100 years old. I mean, their infrastructure is not wired for the 21st century. It's not even really wired for the 1980s, much less now. And so dealing through the technical difficulties there, and Tyree's on the field coaching the game. I mean, he's also one of the soccer coaches. So being able to get through that and then get so much feedback of what an amazing moment that was, and viewers all the way, Texas, California, obviously locally, has been really cool. And then we were talking off the camera right before we started filming, but the home, I guess the previous round of that state tournament of 2022 for boys soccer, the quarterfinal, winning in PKs in the dark against Woodbury, when I think they had 2 kicks that if they score they would have won it, and that season would have been over. And Joe Turkey stepping up, and just the excitement of my co-commentators Kate Duroko and CeCe Molesky that day were just like so amazing how into it they were, and it was really emotional. So those are some highlights, and then also not on the broadcasting side, but for me, some of those early podcasts with Jack Toscano, Griffin Wright, Sam Gorey, like they had such a comfort level with each other that I really enjoyed just like chatting sports with them. And I think it was interesting to me the feedback we were getting, that like a lot of people were watching, and at least if not a ton of people were, the people who were compelled to share like their thoughts, and that was really helpful. And it was overwhelmingly positive, but getting, whether it was alums or current parents, past parents, grandparents, teachers in the school, were watching these things and giving us feedback. And it was like, we would do it if one person watched, but to know that people were picking up on what we were doing was really gratifying for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially about what you said. Everyone's watching. I think we always say, like, it's nice for grandparents. I have watched games when I'm sick at home and I want to be there. I have most definitely watched them, put them on my TV on YouTube. Everyone's been there. You had a homework assignment, but you also want to be, you have FOMO. It's
Right.
great.
I think one of the best parts is like after the football game, like after we play, and like going back and hearing what Mr. Hamlin said about everybody.
Well, and sorry, I don't want to filibuster this answer here, but I did actually think of a couple more moments just now that are pretty amazing. So when we got to interview Governor Youngkin, who, regardless of where your politics are, we had the sitting governor live on the air at halftime of the Trinity St. Christopher's basketball game a couple years ago, which also ended up being a fantastic game that came down to the wire, and the Titans prevailed in a close one. Armando Baycott, who was, of course, an alum, who I coached, came back for the Benedictine game last year, and we interviewed him at halftime. And hearing him say on the air that the atmosphere of the Benedictine-Trinity rivalry surpassed Duke Carolina, which he played in, at least 10 times, Duke Carolina games, was like, I just wanted to clip that and put it all out there for the world to understand that we have a passionate fan base over here on Pitaway. And so those those were very impromptu. Like, I literally just walked up to Governor Youngkin right at the beginning of halftime, and I was like, hey, do you mind coming up here and doing an interview? And Ryan Lloyd was with me, and I think he asked him some questions too. And those more spontaneous moments are things, that we really remember fondly, and you can never necessarily plan for, but that's the ones that are the best. Just like you couldn't plan that the championship game is going to come down to the last second, or that we're going to win in a last-minute Colin Flood goal against Collegiate. But those spontaneous moments that we'll all remember, like, that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think the majority of my favorite moments, obviously the big sporting moments are awesome as a sports fan. But for me, when one of the TSPN broadcasters, when you can start to feel them get comfortable, that's one of my favorite things. I think, Hayes Shepard at our girls soccer state game a couple years ago started, when we scored the winning goal, started yelling in Spanish. Yeah. That was amazing. Ryan and Woody on the baseball broadcast last year, one of the best games of the year against Collegiate, in the middle of one of the late innings, they just start singing Adele. And like the fact that these guys are having fun with it while doing something that, they're all sports fans, we're all sports fans. And so they're alongside that, and they're starting to have fun and realize, this is sports, and we all love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Deuce Edwards screaming from the basketball, yeah, Trey, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the Ryan Mitchell, James Woodward one as well, because I was watching that on my phone. It was a Friday night in the spring. Collegiate earlier that week had beaten us pretty handily in baseball at their place, and coming back here, and I was watching it on my phone, and I was actually originally watching just to evaluate the broadcast. Like, I wasn't even thinking we'd win the game, but they were doing amazing, and then the team pulled this big upset against the Collegiate team that I think it was, I believe, number 1 or number 2 in the state at the time, and we ended up with a walk-off win, and they crushed it. And Ryan at the time was in my sports broadcasting class, so listening to him take the things we talked about in class and incorporate them into the broadcast, I mean, as an educator, it was just a real kind of proud papa moment for me, and Ryan and Woody did an incredible job.
So what are the plans next for TESPN? We obviously, people graduate, so you get new, I know our last meeting we talked about new heads and presidents of the club, so what do we want next? What do we want bigger for TESPN next?
For me, I think it's one about keeping it rolling. You know, as both of you guys know, by the end of the year, every year, our numbers get a little bit lower as people start to have more focus on their schoolwork or whatever sport they're playing. But we want to, you know, entire year keep it up, keep everybody invested, make sure we can get everybody as much as they want to be doing with the club or organization, and keep kind of building on what we have. And then I think the next part of it is being able to have you guys more autonomous. You know, Hamlin and I love helping TSPN, love doing broadcasts, love helping build the setups and help with all these podcasts. But at a certain point, if it's you guys doing all the work and you guys fully, you know, running TSPN and we're just kind of here as help, that's what the hope is. That TSPN can become something that it's a student-run organization fully, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then just a couple other things looking down the line. There's some hope and talk of maybe us having like our own studio and, you know, coming up here to Spade. And I mean, this is nice, and this is a space that the school uses in a lot of different ways. But having a more professional studio is something that we would aspire and dream of, that could be incredible. And then, yeah, the other thing for me, and Tyree kind of hit on this, but and for sure, like, I would be the first to say the broadcasting of the live games is the part that I care about the most and love the most. The social media stuff, y'all are way more advanced than I am, and I'm old, and like I look at it and it's cool, but I've never made a story even on Instagram, so much less a reel, much less put music to it. Like, you know, I don't know how to do all that, and I don't really care to, but for the broadcast, training up kids to do it in a competent, professional way, so that either A, we don't have to do as much, or B, like with Ryan Lloyd last year with basketball, you know, all the broadcasts that I had ever done, I had kind of been the play-by-play, because that is the adult and the person who has studied it a lot, and let the student do the color commentary and kind of fill in. And probably if you read a transcript of most of our broadcasts, 80% of the words said on average probably were by me, which I'm happy to do and I don't mind doing. But like Tyree said, we want to get the students more comfortable facilitating the broadcast. So Ryan Lloyd at one point was like, hey, let me do the play-by-play. You be the color analyst. And then he took the reins on that, and I think he did a great job. And even to the point where Ryan started writing intro scripts before, like, to set up the broadcast. And we know a lot of people join late, and I'm not sure how many people are like, you know, waiting in the waiting room of YouTube, and as soon as it comes on, I think some are. But Ryan was writing, I thought, these awesome scripts, and that kind of preparation is exactly what we taught about in the sports broadcasting class, where Silvio Troy come into football games with like a litany of stats, knowing what players on our opposing teams were being recruited by what colleges. That level of preparation and care, that to me is like having a whole army of Trinity students that have that desire, so that instead of us basically being on, you know, for a broadcast like, hey, can somebody please do this, that we're actually having so many people want to do it that we have to be like, all right, this time it can only be you two, we'll put you all net for next time. And I mean, there have been instances like that, but generally I wouldn't say the reservoir of depth is quite where we would like it to be. So growing that is a real ambition from my standpoint.
I think even like when talking to Hagan or David, if not everyone is, they're kind of more, they're also in TSPN. That's like something I think that we really want to incorporate, is in meetings also have kind of those workshops where we can talk about how to do broadcasts, what should be talked about, what maybe shouldn't be said on broadcasts, and different, like, I guess, brainstorms of what we can post on social media, and good edits, and maybe good manners online, all of that. So I think that's something we're really looking forward to this year at TSPN, is coming up with those ideas, and not, like, we can plan ahead of, like, so they can teach on to the next generation of kids who come through here, and it can keep going on.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, is there like any teams or sports that y'all like most looking forward to this season, especially like broadcasting or seeing live?
For me, the football broadcasts are probably the ones I enjoyed the most because the nature of football, it's a little bit easier, at least from my standpoint. Like there's a play, and then there's a break, and you know, I mean, you obviously play at a very, very high level, and people watching this who don't know, I mean, you're committed to West Virginia to play football, and you know, you were recruited by, I mean, how many offers did you have, Deuce?
30.
All right, so 30 offers from, you know, all the from Tennessee and Oklahoma and Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and on and on and on. So you obviously love football, but I just think it's the one I like to broadcast the best. I actually think I would love to do baseball as well, but I'm a head varsity coach that in the spring, so that's challenging scheduling wise. But I love them all, I really do. Just football is so, we have a great vantage point up from the press box, and I just like the pace of football. But really, I look forward to them all. I can't wait to do our first volleyball broadcast of the year with a team that has a lot of seniors that we've watched grow, and our very first TSPN broadcast was a volleyball game when this year's seniors were freshmen. And so having that come full circle, of course, you know, the record of our field hockey team on our broadcast is incredible. Like virtually every game we've ever done, they've won, with maybe one or two exceptions. Boys soccer is awesome. The majority of those guys I have coached when they came through on the JV side. And also soccer is, if I had to say, probably like, if I could only pick one sport to watch for the rest of my life, it'd probably be soccer, so I love that. And then basketball in the winter. I mean, the atmosphere at the big home basketball games is more electric than, you know, really anything else, just because of the proximity and those ancient rivalries. And so I really love it all. But if you said like I had to pick one that I'm the most excited, it is football. I mean, and that's just because of the nature of what the broadcast looks like.
I mean, I don't get to broadcast as much as I probably would like to. Just, you know, I'm coaching every season pretty much, and I'm fine with producing a lot of the time. But every baseball season, every spring, I get a baseball or softball game on a Saturday that I get to broadcast, and I'd say that's probably my favorite. You know, I'm someone who grew up listening to baseball games on the radio because I was a Yankees fan living in Washington, D.C., and they didn't have MLB TV, so you had your one weekly game, but we had this big crank radio, so I would just listen to baseball broadcasts. So that's one of the things, you know, I grew up, I was like, oh, maybe I'd do that. So it's fun to kind of get back and for an afternoon be a baseball broadcaster. I love doing any of the sports that are smaller, though, because the people that watch those care so much about those. You know, doing the football broadcast is awesome because thousands of people watch it and everybody saw it and it's awesome. But almost every time I end up doing a volleyball broadcast by myself or one of those other sports that probably don't get as many views, I'll get a nice email from a parent or a grandparent that says, hey, thank you for putting that on. That was really cool.
And I think the athletes are so appreciative of those ones. Like you said, I mean, the football broadcasts get thousands of views, but some of our broadcasts get a few dozen, you know. But you a lot of times get more appreciation just that's out there. And even though Coach Tyree doesn't do a ton of broadcasting, he's really good.
Right.
He's really good at everything he does and super reliable and competent in every way. But he is excellent with the broadcasting part as well.
Nice. I think I'm looking at the time. We're kind of coming to an end. I guess like speed round. What game are you most looking forward to this season?
Football versus St. Christopher's.
Versus St. Chris?
Yeah.
We only have 3 home games.
Oh wait, you're right. I'm tripping. My bad. I'm thinking Benedictine. I thought that was like the obvious answer.
Not a home game.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only a home. My bad. That was only a home game.
Field hockey versus collegiate. It's always electric.
You see, I was thinking field hockey versus Norfolk Academy.
Also should be great.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be especially good because now that we've had some of our field hockey girls commit, and Norfolk Academy is a really big field hockey school, they're going to be teammates in college. So kind of watching them go against each other, I think it's going to be interesting.
What about Wait, do we play the soccer play St. Chris home this year?
Yes.
Yep.
See, I think that's gonna be a
That's
good
gonna be
game.
I also think that'll be
Yeah,
a good
that's
game.
up there too. That's been great the last 2 or 3 years. That's
Yeah.
been a great game and a really one of my favorite broadcasts for sure.
I was at that game when we lost at City Stadium. That was that game. That
Hey, so was
a
I.
good
We were
game. Oh,
there.
yeah, my bad.
So was I, man.
That was a great game though.
Mine, I would say St. Chris. I think that's going to be a good game, and it's homecoming.
Yeah, that's true.
I hope we
Senior
get a
night,
good turnout
homecoming.
for student section, because I think sometimes for homecoming, they feel rushed about getting ready, but y'all have to come out to this one because
Oh yeah.
it's St. Chris.
See, I think we could be possibly. I might be wrong, but I think we could be possibly playing for a Prep League championship that game. I think.
It's mathematically certainly possible,
Yeah.
but you got to take care of business these next couple weeks.
That is
So
true.
you worry about your business, and
Yeah.
we'll worry about that broadcast.
That's true.
All right. I think we're good.
We're good.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll be back with more athlete interviews next week, but we thought this would be kind of a fun behind the scenes look on a week where things are pretty quiet and tight in athletics. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to Deuce, Bella, Carter Tyree. I'm Rick Hamlin, and we'll see you next time.